Well, let's take you back to our main story this hour, the death of 11 mine workers and 70 others who've been injured after a cage plunged down a shaft yesterday at the Impala Platinum mine in Rustenburg in the northwest. Let's take this up now with the Minerals Council CEO Mzila Mthenjane. A very good evening to you, sir. Good to have your time tonight. So this has been described as the darkest day in the history of Implats, but what most people want to know is how on earth this happened and at this scale.
Good evening, and thank you very much for having me. Let me first start by expressing my sincerest condolences to our colleagues who lost their lives during this very tragic incident, and wish those who are in hospital, of which we, in terms of the latest report from Impala, 14 remain critical, and that they may experience a speedy recovery. So the incident is rather recent, as yesterday, and I'm loath to comment on what has happened because an investigation is still in loco. I'm aware that the management, together with the unions and the DMRE, are on site to conduct an investigation to really get to the bottom of what really happened here. So the details are not those that I'm familiar with at the moment. So I'll prefer not to comment in terms of what happened. But we are truly saddened, and it certainly is a dark day to have had so many people lost their lives in a single incident like this.
But how rare is a tragedy of this kind? I know you don't want to comment on the details as to what happened at Implats yesterday, but is this a rare occurrence? I mean, we've covered in the news, for example, issues around rock falls, which kill workers who become trapped underground, etc. But this sort of thing, where what is basically a lift cage sort of thing, collapses in this way, is that rare?
Absolutely, and I think we can spend some time talking about that, because if you look at, firstly, when last an incident of this nature took place in the mining industry, the one of significance in my lifetime in the industry is the Varis disaster, where it was more than 100 people. And the reason for that is that, you know, shaft systems as we find them in deep level hard rock mines are highly technical and well-designed systems for transporting people in and out of the ground, with significant safety factors to ensure that they're safe. And so typically when an accident like this happens, you know, in layman's terms, we'll call it a freak accident. The frequency of the accident, but also the number of people who tend to suffer injury and death tends to be out of norm.
And just to bring everyone up to speed, what's said to have happened here, basically, Implat said in its statement that there's been a serious safety incident. It had to do with a winder rope at the mine's 11th shaft operation yesterday, Monday. Then it says this: the rope is connected to the personnel conveyance, which hoists employees up and down the shaft. The conveyance comprises 3 levels, they say, each with the capacity to carry 35 personnel. Is that still the safest way to get workers in and out of these shafts in this day and age?
Well, these are shafts that have been in existence perhaps for the past 15 to 20 years. And in terms of the best way to exploit and extract that commodity, and in this case we're talking platinum, a vertical shaft is the most optimum way of actually being able to access those mineral commodities and extract them most efficiently and in the safest way. You know, we've often said that the safest mine is one where there are no people working, especially as mines get deeper. And we are constantly working on finding new ways of continuing to mine, but without putting people in danger. And one of those is looking at remote controlled vehicles, and we've seen in other mines overseas, particularly when it comes to open cast, but also in underground mines, where they are not manned by anyone who's underground, but manned from surface. So whilst the manner of access of these commodities underground will continue in this way, what is important is how we exclude people from working in these conditions.
But that's where you're going to run into trouble with labor, isn't it? Because they say they want safer ways for employees to be able to go about their daily duties, but they also want plans that still incorporate the workforce where people don't lose their jobs. Is that still possible?
That's right. So it's a transition, and it's not something that is happening as we speak or in the immediate future, but it is something that we think we will see with new mines in the future, where there'll be few people working underground. It's certainly not in some of the conditions that exist today, but it is a work in progress where the kind of employee that will work on a mine will certainly be different from today. The mines that continue to operate today will continue to operate for another 10, 15 years. And in that case, we do have to focus a lot on how we improve safety behavior. We need to improve on safety systems to make sure that people can work in safe environment and be able to leave the workplace and go back home.
I want to come back to the system itself, because what the National Union of Mine Workers now says is it wants to see the record of the safety checks that Implats would have conducted on the system. How often are these systems supposed to be tested for safety, and how crucial would those records be in determining whether or not this was a safe thing to do?
My understanding, and I've worked in these conditions before, these are systems that are checked regularly. And I think in the case of Impala, let's allow them the time and the space to do a proper investigation before we speculate on what may or may not have happened. The typical relationship, amongst company unions and DMR is one that has been very constructive in terms of tripartite arrangements. And this is what is happening right now at the mines in terms of those three institutions being present to conduct the investigation. And it's a transparent and very constructive process that I think we should allow.
I appreciate that, Mr. Mthenjane. What I'm trying to understand is the industry standard as far as maintenance and safety checks. What are the rules as to making sure that a system such as this, I mean, if it's going to carry 3 tiers, each with 35, with sets of 35 workers, you wonder what the rules are in the business for making sure that each and every trip, if I can put it that way, is fully safe.
Well, the rules are in place, and Impala, as the rest of the industry, is a highly regarded mining business and operation. And I can speak with confidence that the safety rules would have been applied, the engineering rules and protocols to ensure that the system continues to work safely are in place and conducted appropriately. I think that's as much as I can say in as far as your question is concerned.
Are you saying there's not an industry standard? Does each mining company set its own sort of rules around maintenance and the safety checks?
No. What you have to understand is that these shafts are designed for specific application and purpose, depending on the height of the shaft, the depth to which it will be lifting that cage, the size of the cage, and the diameter of the cage. So there will be a standard and safety factors that will be designed for the purpose of that shaft. So we cannot generalize on an industry standard. But what is in place is that for these types of systems, there must be a safety factors and a design that is fit for the kind of use that it will be applied to.
When would the industry deem it unsafe for use, generally?
Typically, with the regular tests that would be done, a professional engineer would declare the system unsafe to a degree, and then would recommend amendments to that system. And the severity of the problem that is found could also lead to a situation where the system is then halted and not working at all until the problem is fixed.
Mr. Mzila Mthenjane, CEO of the Minerals Council, thank you so much for your time tonight on Newzroom Afrika.